Well, today on our Wednesday walkabout is going to be do's and don'ts of fall gardening, or at least specifically to me here at the cottage. I'm going to harvest the remainder of the peppers and maybe a few other things, and then I'm going to just take out the plants because I'm tired of watering them. We're going to prep a few things to bring in before the first freeze. I'm going to relocate and transplant some kind of surprising things in the cottage garden this fall, and then I'll make sure you stay to the end because I've got a great gardening hack for you in container planting. So lots to cover. What do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, once I figured out all of the watering issues in my raised beds, they proved to be really, really bountiful. And so I'm going to now harvest all the remainder of the peppers. You can see I've got my Think Green Cool Jobs gloves on.
It smells so good over here.
I know, it really does smell good over here. That's because I keep brushing all of this basil. So let me see. I guess I don't have to be so fastidious with the pruners because I'm going to pull out this plant anyway. So I'm just harvesting. And aren't these pretty? And if I wanted to, I could even, look here, if I wanted to, I could even take a big branch like that, and I could bring it in and make a whole flower arrangement around that. And I think that would be very fun. But look at all those peppers on there. So I am just gonna put these in my harvest basket. And by the way, I got this harvest basket recently, and I have used it so much. I will try to make sure to put a link to it. True confession, it was a little bit pricier than I normally spend on baskets, but that's because it's so tough, really heavy duty, and can hold things that have much greater weight than most baskets can. So I'm just going to cut these off. As you can see, a lot of times it's fun when Victor or any of the guys that really like to cook Mexican food come over and there are peppers here. They'll sometimes ask for some. And I said, oh my goodness, you don't need to ask. Just go ahead and take them. Okay, so that's pretty intuitive what I'm doing. Here I am just harvesting all of these peppers. Now what I'm going to do when I get finished is I'm just going to pull out the plants for a couple of different reasons. I've got oregano, culinary oregano, growing at the base, and it is kind of getting shaded out. And this is a perennial and it's going to come back. So I'm going to cut it back a little bit, harvest some of it for cooking, and then I'm just going to let it continue to do its thing. And then likewise, I'm going to harvest the remainder of all of this basil. Yes, it does. It smells like licorice, like anise. Must be a kind of a Thai basil. Okay, let's do it. And then pretty incredible. And I will use that somehow, again, maybe in some flower arrangements. Here's a different kind of pepper. I've got some different shapes of peppers in here. But then I will just take off these two tours that they've been climbing on. I will remove them, pull out.
Right in there.
Yeah, they really were happy. And this is just the perfect degree of moisture in here. And it took some practice, but we finally got just the right amount of water on these guys. Kayla was very helpful in that regard. So all that will go in the compost pile. Okay, now look here what this is exposed. I may have showed this to you, I can't remember. I had a carrot top that had started to sprout, and so I just planted it. And look, I'm getting a little carrot. And over here we've got some more of that oregano. Whoa, we got a great big guy right here. Stuart, you may be having to take some jalapeno peppers. Oh, here's an Anaheim right here.
You could do a cheese stuffing.
I do. I could, and I might. That sounds pretty good. So I'm going to pull out the rest of these, and then I'll show you what this looks like when it's all finished. And if it were a little bit earlier in the season, here's my question of the day. So today it is October 22nd. It is 20 degrees above normal, Stuart. We are supposed to get up to 90 to
No.
92 degrees today. And in the coming, I keep checking the 10-day forecast, and it's not supposed to get below like a high of 72 for the next 14 days.
No.
Something like that, with no sign of frost in sight. So here's my question of the day. If you were me, should I take the risk of planting in this empty box some lettuce greens? Do you think that we have enough growing season left to make it worth it? Is it a gardening risk worth taking? Or should I just continue to let these perennial herbs grow? So there you go. There is my question of the day. If you were me, what would you do? Okay, so there you go. It is all empty. I am going to make a big batch of marinara sauce later today. The oregano and the basil and everything. Yeah. You smell the pizza? Okay, so I'm gonna clip this off.
I can really smell pizza. It's weird.
Stuart, I think that's wishful,
It is wishful
wishful olfactory thinking. Okay, so there you go. So now this looks nice, and as you can see, there's still a lot of life left in this soil. Now later in the winter, on a nice day, we're going to come back, Kayla and I are, and we're going to replace this black tarp liner, which has not proven to be very long-lived, very enduring. So we're going to come back in and we're going to replace it with a metal liner like that which I've got in the other box.
Well, the window box has metal too, right?
Yeah, the window box has metal too. And why we didn't do it in this, I don't know. It may have been a budgetary consideration at that point. But we're going to do that this winter. So I'm going to leave these cute little peppers in here because they just add a little punch of color. But I do think, and by the way, these I could also harvest because there's good red pepper flakes in here for Stuart's pizza.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
Never thought about
Red
that.
pepper
The
flakes,
small
there you go. Little cayenne peppers. But you can see how this does have drip irrigation that comes up through the bottom. It's been a while since we've taken a close look at these. So, yay or nay, you guys, let me know. Should I put some greens in there, maybe some mesclun mix? And now over here to this planter box, which also took us forever to really figure out the watering. And I've gotten a whole, this was not a very prolific exercise because of the watering situation. But gardening is an experiment. So I've got a few tomatoes, and honestly, you guys, I could keep these going and I could leave them in here and they probably would continue to produce because now it's almost perfect temperatures for them to fruit and for me to harvest the fruit. But I'm getting tired of their mess, and I am beginning to see a touch of whitefly that did not show up until the very, very end of the season. Okay, true confessions. That was my phone ringing, and I had to take it because it was the gal that's going to give me an injection in my golfer's elbow, and I did not want to miss that call. So, in case you too are suffering from medial epicondylitis, then there is a cure. You can get a cortisone shot. Okay, look here that I discovered right here. A big tomato. My only big tomato. Why, oh why did I not figure out my watering issues until so late in the season?
What is that?
I don't know what it is. I'd have to look back at my gardening notes. I kind of quit being so attentive over here when it really wasn't performing. So I'm gonna have to come back, clean up all this later. But you'll notice in here, my point in doing this is so you can see that there is a liner in here. And that really, really is far more of an enduring solution than that other. Now I have a couple, you may have recalled that I had these grapevines in my house in a pot for a while. They too are suffering, it looks like, for some whitefly. So I might address that. And then I think what I'm going to do is actually plant these and maybe start training them up and around here. Whether or not I will keep them that way, who knows? Because things are always changing here. The only thing that's constant is change. Okay, so I'm going to take this off. I might let that one guy continue to mature. What do you think, Stuart?
I want to know what he is.
You want to know what it is? Well, it's just... Oh, and I accidentally cut that one off. I cut the wrong one off.
I was like, what just happened?
How many times do you guys do that? Well, I will still save it and let it mature on its own. So then that gives me permission to tear this one out. How many times have you guys done that?
I've done that before.
When you're for sure
man.
you've got the right branch.
I did that a bunch.
And then you don't. Yeah, it's very...
I've never done it on
very
camera
distressing. It's very distressing. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to pull out the rest of these. Here are some marigolds that never got planted in here because life intervened. But you know what? I'm not going to beat myself up over that. I do the best I can. That's our challenge for today, is to try to not beat ourselves up over something. Okay, so I'm going to take these off, and immediately that looks tidier. I should have had my big weed bucket here, but I didn't. And all of this will be cleaned up. It will be, I will practice good garden hygiene, and I will feel like this is a little bit more under control. So there we go for my back garden beds. I wanted to give you an update on them. We haven't really been back here in a while. And now let's go look at a few other things in other parts of the garden. Well, on today's outfit of the day, the theme is all about layered dressings, starting from head to toe. My sunglasses, I wore these down the street to a friend of mine. These are men and women's sunglasses, by the way, and my friend down there really liked them, so I bought him a pair of these too. My earrings I got at Burlington Coat Factory years ago. They don't have nearly as an extensive line of jewelry as they used to, but I got these years ago and I kind of like them. My top, which you can't see very well, but my white top my son got in India. It's one of those just really lightweight, comfy cotton tops. And my jacket. I can't remember where I got my jacket, but it's just a basic kind you can find just about anywhere. I'll put a link if I can find some. I have had these shorts since forever. I just cut them off. And they're great for this kind of weather where it's cool in the morning, but it's hot later in the day. And then I, of course, have a pair of my high C boots on that I just really, really love. And I think, Stuart, that's pretty much it. There's my outfit du jour. But wait, before we go into the front yard, there's a couple of quick things that I wanted to show you back here that have been so successful, but not until this fall. I planted this nasturtium, I want to say this seed back in March, and it did absolutely nothing until I got the water corrected and until it really started to cool down. And I think it's very, very fun. And have you ever heard of making pesto with nasturtium leaves? That's something that a niece of mine told me about, and I may just have to try it because pretty soon there is ultimately going to have a freeze, and I'm going to want to harvest all of this basil. I've got some more ornamental peppers in here. What else do I have? There are some things that I already have pulled out. I've got some chives going. I've got some rosemary. And then if you will look over here to the middle box, and I apologize, the light is just really funky this morning, but I will have more than enough sage and parsley and chard and everything for my Thanksgiving table. So this, I will just let this continue to grow because I will harvest all of this and use most of it in soups and stews and even turkeys. Okay, so how do you overwinter your ferns? Well, in the past, sometimes if they are really, really beautiful, I'll take them to the greenhouse and I'll just leave them like this. But next year, I'm not sure I'm going to do fern back here because they just were water hogs, and now that things are beginning to fill in, I don't think I need their presence in the garden. If you want to save some Boston fern, Kimberly Queen, or whatever kind of fern, and hopefully reuse them next year, then all you have to do is come in with some pruners. You can even use some long bladed head shears and just cut them all the way back. And then you can put them into a cool location like your garage, something that's not going to get too much below maybe 38 degrees. I have actually successfully done this by putting them in my basement. And then you're just going to keep them barely watered. You're not going to water them a lot. And I would say that probably 4 times out of 5, this has been successful for me. And even if it's not, then it's a risk worth taking, because otherwise I would just be throwing these in the compost pile. So there you go. I'll give it a good watering. And then I'll probably put it maybe in my cool garage, and even if I don't grow them next year, somebody else will appreciate that. Okay, this is a perfect example of shopping your garden. I just put this into one of these really large concrete planters where it should overwinter just fine. But Stuart, right here, let's put a picture of what this looked like when I first dug it up many, many years ago. That's the little one that you sent me the other day, and it was only about that tall. I put it in a little pot, and it's since grown. And I said many, many years ago. That's probably only been about, would you say 4 years ago, Stuart?
Yeah, about right.
Stuart, I just saw a Japanese beetle, or a spotted cucumber beetle, crawling on your phone. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's been so hot and dry. Our driest October on record, which is, yes, making me a nervous wreck, I'm not gonna lie. That these mums that I bought earlier in the season, well, they're already done for. You can see that all the flowers.
Yeah, there's dust flying everywhere.
Yeah, there's just flying everywhere. They're already done. Plus, they were on a south-facing porch with no shade. So even though I kept them watered, nevertheless, their lifespan was not as long as I would like it to be for fall show. However, I intentionally bought these in white because I knew, boy, what's going on down the street today? We've got some concrete work going on. I knew when I bought them in white that I was going to want to plant these out in the garden to perennialize. And so to make that happen right now, I'm going to go ahead and cut these back. I could, of course, I guess, leave these dead flowers on and plant them, but why do that? Plus, it's easier to work with a plant that's been cut back. So I'm cutting these back hard, and I will put these in kind of a shady place. I've got multiple pots of these to do, and I will keep them watered. And then when it's time for me to plant the tulips, I'll be much more clear-eyed about where I want to position these, because by then I'll also be taking out all of the lantana, the penta, and the other annuals, and I'll see where my spots are, and from a design perspective where I really want these to go. So if you too have mums that have kind of passed their peak, consider planting them out instead of just discarding them, because they do have some life in them yet. Well, you guys know that I've really been tending my boxwood basil. I've been deadheading it so it wouldn't go to seed, and so it would stay still kind of round and in a tufted boxwood shape. But I'm not cutting it back anymore. Why? Because I want it to go to seed, because I discovered that last year this area where I had boxwood basil planted, a lot of this went to seed and it overwintered. And lo and behold, in the spring after a rain, lots of little baby boxwood basil showed up. So right now I am not going to cut it back anymore, unless of course I'm harvesting some to bring inside. All of this, I'm going to let it go to seed in hopes that once again I will have some little darling boxwood basil seedlings come up for me to spread around the garden or to share with others. I think it's a good garden don't. Well, here's another garden do that I am not always good about, as so many of you have pointed out, and that's keeping my bird bath filled with water. Now, in my defense, part of the reason that it's hard to keep filled with water is because it's Oklahoma and it's windy, and this is in scorching sun and a south exposure. So it's not so much that I've got a leak in the bird bath, which some of you speculated. It's simply because of transpiration and evaporation and the water just disappears. So magically disappears. So if I want to encourage my avian friends to come by and eat some of those spotted cucumber beetles, Stuart, I need to make sure that I keep this filled with water. Okay, here is an answer to a question that you had and another garden do, both a garden do and a garden don't. I am no longer planting my Agapanthus directly into the ground. These are some of the plants from Southern Living. And last year what I did, which I think has proven to be very successful, is, if you'll notice right here, Stuart, what I did do was I just planted the entire pot because I thought, well, if it works, if it works for my topiaries, planting them in the ground, then it might work for the Agapanthus too. And the thing about Agapanthus is they really like to be crowded. That will actually encourage more bloom. So even though it's still a little bit early, probably today I'm going to come back in here, I'm going to get my shovel, and I am going to dig these up and take them into the greenhouse where they'll be contained. Now maybe next year will I have to repot them in a bigger pot? Yes, but nevertheless, this proved to be a really, really good solution to the Agapanthus issue where they don't overwinter. So you can see here's a mound that I've got right here, and there's another mound hiding behind my topiary right there, and another mound here, and I will get my shovel out and I will dig all of these up and take them into the greenhouse, because unlike some other plants, Agapanthus at the start can be a little bit pricey, and I want them to I want them to be an investment plant that makes a presence, makes a statement in my garden for more than just 1 year. Okay, so Linda, you may ask, what do you then do with these holes that are going to be created once you take out these pots? And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave the holes there, because when I come back and I plant my tulips, I will already have pre-dug holes of where those tulips could go. It'll make really getting them in the ground very, very easy. And then since I didn't excavate out that much dirt, there's more than enough soil to cover up those tulip bulbs when I get them in place. And don't forget to stay until the end, where I've got a really fun fall container garden hack for you. Okay, so one thing I am noting in my ever-present garden journal that I try to have at my side whenever I'm working outside is, note to self, I really did not like the look of these periwinkles. Typically, I don't like my periwinkles to have an eye, and these had an eye. And secondly, even though they're a dark pink, from the street they read more red than pink. And so I am not going to plant them again next year. What I am going to do, since they're still kind of bothering me, is I'm going to start cutting these back and seeing what they look like from the street without them, because I do love the lantana, and this will give other things that are in here a chance to kind of fill out and grow. So do decide what you want to replant next year, and don't forget to record that in your garden journal. Okay, now that I'm down here walking along Autumn's edge, I see a potential spot for those mums. Let me know if you agree, because I've got some Gara growing right here. And Gara, even though I love it, I love the way it floats, it tends over time to have ugly legs, ugly woody legs. And I think since there's a space in the foreground of that Gara, that's maybe where I will plant those white mums. And that way I won't necessarily have to have some of that lantana that's in there. That will kind of fill it in, and that white on white I think will be really pretty. Let me know what you think about that. I'm getting all sorts of free garden design advice from you guys today. I think I already told you that when the weather is right, I'm going to be relocating a rose. This one right here, that is crowding a volunteer from the other house, that Blue Point juniper that I will be shaping before too long. So I'm going to move that over to this void in here. I discussed that in my last walkabout. But in the process, Stuart, look what I found. Since there seems to be a theme, do always keep your eyes open for little garden treasures.
Oh, look at that.
And look right there. That guy may just
Sneaky
have
little
to
guy.
may have to grow up and move into the small pot that we showed. Let's show it again here because it was so cute. Of the tiny one that we grew as a pot specimen not that long ago. And also while I'm down here, do be on the lookout for things like any kind of errant, big, long runners of Bermuda grass, which I see coming up in here. I'll make sure to take care of those, and any other weeds that might be going to seed in this area. Well, here I thought I was so clever with my dustbuster tip, but a couple of you said that you too have done this in the past. And in fact, one follower did one up on me, and it was brilliant, because yesterday one soft-hearted follower kept saying, please, please release the bugs, especially the grasshopper. Well, I did release them, but let me tell you, it wasn't necessarily easy to empty out the dustbuster and get them without flying away into you in a plastic bag, because yes, they were still alive. And therein lies the brilliance of this follower's tip. So she said, Linda, here's what I do. She said, first of all, yes, have a dedicated dustbuster just for your insect pests in your garden. And she said what she does then, now this is milky spore. This is not diatomaceous earth, but I also wanted to get this out because this is something that I'm going to be spreading pretty soon too, to deter those Japanese beetles. And yes, apparently this also works on Japanese beetles. Is she said what she does, Stuart, now pay attention, this is brilliant. She said, what I do is I suck up some diatomaceous earth first, so that there's diatomaceous earth inside the little container here, inside the tray. And then she will then suck up her Japanese beetles or her cucumber spotted beetles. And when they go in there, then they come in contact with the diatomaceous earth, which is not a poison. It is just, we've got so many people walking by, watching us shoot this morning. So sorry for that little distraction. But then the diatomaceous earth is what takes out the Japanese beetles and the cucumber spotted beetles. So I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I have not tried it yet, but I've got some in the garage, and I'll try it. Let's put a link here to some diatomaceous earth and also milky spore. And this, by the way, is my favorite dustbuster for the job. Why? Because it's got this retractable little funnel that really can do targeted sucking. And the other trick to this is you want to make sure that that it doesn't already have lots of debris and dust and things in there, because you want to get maximum power, maximum sucking power out of your dustbuster for this to really, really work. So there is just a follow-up to what I think is a pretty ingenious hack, and thanks to the follower who told me about the diatomaceous earth trick, because it really was hard to empty this container without all of those little critters flying away. Now for my last fun fall-inspired container gardening hack. Now, because of the excessive heat and drought that we have had, not only did my mums not last as long as I would have liked them to, but a lot of my pumpkins got sunburn. I mean, literally, they got sunburn spots on them and they started to rot. And then, of course, the squirrels came in. There's an example in my window box there, Stuart, of where it literally just got sunburned and started to rot. So, what to do with these pumpkins? Well, as I told you in last Wednesday's walkabout, I took out the annuals that were growing in here. They were so root bound and I needed to start fresh with soil. So a lot of times, and these are actually a little bit small, but particularly when you've got very, very large pots, like some of the concrete pots that I've got there on the porch, or that I have with my topiaries in them. Obviously, to put lots of soil in there would be pretty pricey. The other thing is even though I can use garden debris, and I do, there are all sorts of types of garden debris, and one of them is pumpkins. And so especially in large pots where you have all sorts of volume to fill, you can use your rotted pumpkins. Now, I did this one year in one of my really, really large pots. Actually, it was one of those that those topiaries are in. And I had some rotted pumpkins, and so I just kind of broke open the pumpkins, though that's not absolutely necessary, but it does make them decompose faster. And then see, it just takes up volume, and then you can put in your soil and plant on top of it. As the pumpkin decomposes, then you can add additional compost on top, and it breaks down and it helps feed the plant. Now, what was fun last time I did it was that I did it in 2 pots. One I planted a topiary in it, and it worked just fine because I had lots of soil in it. The other one I had not yet gotten around to plant. I just put the pumpkin in it with soil on top, and of course the next year there were all sorts of germinated pumpkin seeds that were flowing out of the edge, and that was very fun, and that was fun to watch. But this is really a good idea, and obviously even if some of these seeds germinate, and I could of course take some of these, harvest some of these seeds, bring them in and consume them, and I've done that in the past. But even if you plant something over it and some of those seeds begin to germinate, well, then you just pluck them out if you don't want pumpkins growing out of your annual display for next year. So I hope you guys like this really fun idea. It works great, especially, you know, it might work great when I replenish all of the soil in my back planter boxes where we started for my veggies. So there you go, a few do's and don'ts in your fall garden. Let me know what you think, and make sure to answer my questions for you that I posed earlier in the video. And of course, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, and if you think someone else would enjoy this kind of content, share it their way.